Star Fox Zero is perfect. Not perfect visuals, not perfect gameplay, not perfect depth, but rather a perfect representation of what Nintendo is. It's a reflection on the Wii U system as a whole, and a good look at where the video game industry is headed. Some may see it as just another Star Fox game, but it's a bit more important than that. However, before we get into all of that, here's how I feel about Star Fox Zero for the Wii U. Star Fox Zero is a return to the style that made games like Star Fox on the Super Nintendo and Star Fox 64 become instant classics on their respective systems. You play as Fox McCloud, who, guided by his Star Fox team, is looking to take down Andross, the evil space monkey, once again. To accomplish this, you'll fly around in the classic R-Wing, stomp around in the transforming Landwalker, blast the skies from the ground with the Landmaster, and use the Gyro Wing for more precise missions. I really loved all these vehicles. They were a blast to use, and my only real gripe with them is that we weren't able to use them more in the campaign. Luckily, there are training missions that allow you to exclusively use whichever vehicle you want, and they're pretty fun. Star Fox Zero will punch you with nostalgia and charm right out of the gate. Just like most Nintendo-developed titles, Star Fox Zero is jam-packed with colors and fantastical visuals. But it's not all rainbows. The visual fidelity doesn't match the current industry standard, and there doesn't seem to be much anti-aliasing at all, making for jagged edges. I suspect this was done to keep the frame rate of the gameplay high, and if we had to sacrifice one or the other, I could definitely live with the jagged edges and trade for smoother frame rate. It's just a shame that the Wii U is so underpowered that we can't have both. And even then, the frame rate still dropped in some areas, although for the most part it didn't affect my experience. Star Fox Zero's charm is apparent in its characters. The normal cast shows up, voiced exceptionally well by a lot of the original voiceover actors. Most of, if not all, the voices come through the gamepad speakers. This is both cool and frustrating. Cool because it sounds like someone's actually talking to you through your flight headset. Frustrating because if you capture footage like me, you won't get the voices. I didn't see if there was an option to change this in the menus, but if you're just playing the game, it probably won't matter to you. I'll admit that I've never been a big fan of the Star Fox games, mostly due to the gameplay itself, but I've always enjoyed the characters and the universe that Star Fox offers. And Star Fox Zero did a great job of making me feel all warm and fuzzy in that regard. The music, while grand, doesn't stick in my head like the 16-bit tunes of the original game. Zero's soundtrack plays more like a blockbuster movie, and the on-rails guidance of most of the levels makes it feel like you're on a theme park ride. I've actually been jonesing for a Nintendo-themed amusement park for quite a while now, and this just makes me want it even more. But what about that gameplay that I never seem to like? I can say now with certainty that Star Fox Zero is my favorite game of the games I've played in the series. I've yet to play either of the GameCube games as of this review, but favorite doesn't necessarily mean that Zero is a great game. The controls are pretty complicated. I don't mind complicated controls so long as they feel natural. When I first jumped into Star Fox Zero, I ran through all the training missions to get myself familiar with the controls before I started up the single-player campaign. Those missions took about an hour to complete, and by the end of my training I felt really comfortable with the controls. To explain how they work, you essentially control your aircraft with the left and right thumbsticks, using the left to steer and the right to boost. You can perform somersaults and direction-changing flips by combining the two sticks in a certain sequence. You shoot with the RZ button and lock on with the LZ button. The most difficult part of the Star Fox Zero controls come into play with the aiming. To aim, you must turn the gamepad to the direction you'd like to shoot. You can see the aiming cursor on the TV screen and shoot that way, but it won't be as accurate. To gain accuracy, you must look down at the gamepad, which has its screen locked into a cockpit view. The problem I had was that looking between the TV screen and the gamepad just didn't feel natural. Looking at the TV screen makes it harder to shoot, and looking at the gamepad makes it harder to control your vehicle. Also, constantly moving the gamepad will send the aiming cursor out of whack, so you'll have to constantly recalibrate it every few seconds by clicking down on the left stick. The controls are honestly not the worst I've ever played, but as you progress in the campaign and you start to encounter more enemies and things to evade on the screen, the harder it gets to remember all the things you have to do with the controls. These controls were very much my most challenging enemy in the game, and that frustrated me as I felt I wasn't given the proper controls to complete the game at those times. Ideally, a game will give you spectacular controls and give you challenging enemies or objectives instead of giving you cupcake enemies with challenging controls. There's no doubt that the controls are a sticking point with Star Fox Zero, and that's why it's imperative that you find a way to play the game for a few hours before buying in blind. Some folks won't find the controls all that much trouble, while others will simply be turned off right away by the choice of the developers to use the gamepad in such a bold manner. This is not just a second screen experience, it's essential to the game. Now you can turn off the motion controls in the settings, but in what's probably Star Fox Zero's most puzzling design choice, you still have to use the motion controls when you're shooting and aiming to do that shooting. Because of this, I found it better to just immerse myself in the full gamepad gyro controls. At times it works wonderfully and you get why the developers made this decision. At other times, you wonder what they were thinking. The campaign can probably be ran through in about 4 hours or so, if you're just looking to run straight through. Add a few more hours if you want to unlock all the branching paths. I mentioned the training levels earlier, which see you using different vehicles to collect coins. That'll add a few more hours. And then there's the arcade mode, which is unlocked after you finish the campaign. Arcade mode is basically all the levels from the campaign, and you run through just trying to set your high score. You can go back through and try to best your own high scores, so that'll probably add another 4 hours or so. You can also run through the campaign with a friend in co-op mode, where one of you steers the ship and the other aims and shoots. This works about as well as you would imagine. If you have a good partner, it'll be much more fun. If you have a partner who doesn't know how to play all that well, then you're screwed. All in all, you're looking at about 15 hours of content to run through before you're just playing because you love Star Fox. Even then, what I just listed is basically retreading similar territory. I'm disappointed at the lack of different stuff to do in Zero. Because of this, the game just kinda seems like it was rushed out. I'm not sure if I can say Star Fox Zero, on its own, is worth the $60 asking price. Luckily, Nintendo has you covered if you're an early adopter. Packed in with Star Fox Zero is Star Fox Guard, a game that was formerly known as a tech demo called Project Guard. In Guard, you're tasked with the challenge of defending a base from a slew of different robot invaders. You use a circuit of security cameras to defend the base from all sides. As you progress through the levels, you'll encounter newer, stronger robots and unlock new weapons for your cameras. Star Fox Guard is pretty fun. In fact, my son enjoyed playing that far more than he did Zero. For me, Guard is fun, but the fun wears off fairly soon. It's one of those games that you can pop in every once in a while and have a good time. But I'm not going to factor Star Fox Guard into the review score for Star Fox Zero. They are separate games and will be treated as such. As I said in the beginning of the review, Star Fox Zero is the perfect representation of the Wii U, and what has both plagued the system and made it one of the most underappreciated consoles. Star Fox is a pretty darn good game. It's fun, exciting, charming, nostalgic, and has that air of Nintendo magic. It's also technically unimpressive, has a lean amount of content, doesn't do much to change Star Fox in a positive, meaningful way, and is hampered by the developer's obligation to use the gamepad in a unique and vital manner. Nintendo can still make great games, I have no doubt about that, but it seems like the Wii U has them chained to the floor. As much as I love the Wii U system, it's time to move on. Over time, Star Fox Zero will likely be remembered as a late release in the Wii U's lifespan, which feels incredibly odd to say for a console that's not even 4 years old yet. Zero is good, not great, fun, but not fun enough. I give Star Fox Zero 3 stars out of 5.